Why you should buy a car and not lease it. Hello and welcome to today's video. Car leasing or car buying? This is a question that many people ask themselves when they are looking for a new vehicle. Both options have their pros and cons, and the right choice depends on the buyer's individual circumstances and preferences. In this video, we will explore the key financial and other factors to consider when deciding between leasing and buying. Cost. Cost of the most important things to consider. One of the most important things to consider when deciding between leasing and buying is cost. In general, it is cheaper to buy a car rather than lease it. Leasing usually has a higher monthly cost, and a down payment is required. The monthly lease amount is the difference between the new car price and the expected residual value of the car, plus interest and fees. If you want to sell the car after a few years, you usually get less money than when you bought it. Currently, for example, with the increase of about 13% in the price of new cars, and even a full 19% price increase on used cars, it may even be cheaper to lease a car if you can still get a loan with a lower interest rate. However, this is probably a rather unique calculation example, and the special current situation of inflation, resulting price increases, and the still continuing rise in interest rates are due. At the end of the video, we will show you two current examples. If you like this video, we appreciate a thumbs up and that you subscribe to our channel. Mileage. If you drive the car regularly and over a longer distance, it may be worth buying it. Leasing usually allows limited annual mileage, and you'll incur additional costs if you exceed that. If you travel a lot, it may be worth buying the car and paying for the maintenance costs yourself. Maintenance costs. When the car is purchased, maintenance costs are usually the responsibility of the owner. When leasing, these are usually included in the monthly lease price. However, if you want to sell the car at the end of the lease, it may be difficult to get a good price because the car already has many miles on the clock and may be in worse condition than a car that was purchased from the beginning. Financial resources. Another important factor is the amount of equity you have. If you don't have enough equity to buy a car, leasing can be an alternative. With leasing, you usually only have to make a down payment, and the monthly payments are usually lower than the rates on a car loan. However, you should ask yourself if you can afford a car at all, or if you are living beyond your means when you buy or lease a car. All in all, a car, whether purchased or leased, is not an asset, but a liability. Thus, a car costs you money either way. Whether you lease a car and thus have monthly expenses that you can never recoup, or buy a car that can be sold at a lower price than you buy it. Also, either way, a car has ongoing costs, such as insurance or repair costs. Even if some of the costs are covered by the lease price, it is a liability that costs you money and makes you poorer instead of richer. Tax aspects. Another factor to consider is the tax aspects. If you use the car for business, it may be worth leasing it, as part of the lease payments can be claimed as business expense. However, if the car is mainly used privately, it may be worth buying it and claiming the depreciation. In particular, mileage costs to work can be deducted via travel expenses. Nevertheless, it remains to be emphasized that a car will always cost money as a liability. A calculation example can help to better compare the costs of leasing and buying. Let's assume you want to buy or lease a car worth 30,000 euros. You have the choice between a car loan with an interest rate of 3% and a term of 5 years, or a lease contract with a term of 3 years. If you choose the car loan, you would have to make a down payment of 6,000 euros and would have monthly installments of 490 euros. At the end of the term, the car would be fully paid off and you would be the owner of the vehicle. However, we definitely advise against buying a car altogether if you can't afford it. If you need a car loan and don't have the money for a car in cash, then you can't afford it. Therefore, from our point of view, this calculation example should also be considered very negative. Instead, it may make sense to look at other transportation options, such as public transportation, car sharing, or bicycles to reduce costs. However, there are also cases where a car is essential. For example, if you live in a rural area where public transportation is not well developed, or if you have a job where you travel a lot, perhaps you can negotiate with your employer for a company car for work-related travels. Otherwise, we would advise against a purchase that is currently unaffordable for you. For example, consider whether moving is a more cost-effective option for you. If you decide to lease, for example, you would have to make a down payment of 10% in the amount of 3,000 euros and would have monthly installments of 800 euros. At the end of the contract, you would have to return the car unless you decide to buy it. In this case, the residual value of the vehicle is determined. If you choose the car loan, at the end of the term, you will be the owner of the car, but will have spent more money overall. If you choose to lease, you will spend less money, but will not own the car at the end of the contract. However, only the purchase cost is affected here. If you buy the car for cash, you will have no interest overall, in addition to owning and possibly reselling the car, but you will have the same ongoing costs, such as insurance and garage appointments. It is important to note that this is only an example, and the actual cost is affected by various factors, such as the value of the car, the interest rate, and the term of the contract. It is worth comparing different offers and calculating the costs accurately to make the best decision for your situation. In a nutshell, leasing has some advantages. You have no or hardly any wear and tear repairs, since you usually get a new car. In addition, you can also get some % discount at certain companies or special offers. Here, it is worthwhile in any case to wait for offers and to look around and research thoroughly. You have, depending on the leasing agreement, annually to triannually, a new car or a used car with very few kilometers. Thus, your car is always up to date and has a certain comfort factor, which will change faster and faster technically. Workshop appointments are usually only necessary for service purposes. This makes it possible to change your car frequently. With many cars, it is also possible that you configure a car, as would be the case with a new car that you buy. In the meantime, depending on the leasing agreement, no or a small down payment is necessary. Furthermore, the leasing rate is determined by the value of the car. Thus, you have more equity capital available for investments. For example, you tie up less capital, but you should definitely calculate whether you could invest the leasing money more profitably each month. If you are self-employed or work as a freelancer, you can take advantage of the tax benefits in Germany and deduct the installments for tax purposes. This is also possible if you use your vehicle as a company car. However, there are some disadvantages that you should not ignore. The car won't become your property, as it would be if you were paying in installments. This means that when your leasing contract ends, you end up with nothing. Many leasing contracts have a mileage limit. The higher kilometers are sometimes charged with high cent amounts. This can lead to high additional payments when you return the car. A leasing contract usually has a term of at least 1 to 3 years. You should think carefully about whether you can afford the installments for the entire period, and also take into account an option for unemployment. cancellation is usually not possible. You usually pay for the insurance separately. Furthermore, you have to keep the service intervals meticulously and always take good care of the vehicle. In summary, there is no clear answer as to whether it is better to lease or buy a car. It depends on the individual circumstances and preferences of the buyer. It is important to carefully weigh one's needs and the various factors to make the best decision for one's situation. From a purely financial perspective, buying a car is usually less expensive due to the down payment and the significantly higher monthly costs. A leasing deal is usually the more costly option, with a few exceptions. That was today's video on the pros and cons of leasing or buying a car. Do you own a car? Thanks for watching.